studio. Di hari ini kita akan mendengarkan perkuliahan ya dari Pak Sigit terkait dengan public space ya, public space. Jadi Pak Sigit akan menjelaskan lebih detail tentang dari bukunya ya. Pak Sigit ini sendiri karena tidak mau dibacakan CV-nya, jadi saya kira-kira aja ya Mas Sigit ya. Mas Sigit sendiri ini, dipanggil Mas aja ya, kayaknya lebih akrab ya.
Siap, silakan.
Oke. Jadi Mas Sigit ini sendiri S1-nya dulu arsitektur dari UGM, kemudian S2-nya lanjut di RK5100 ini, dan kemudian S3-nya di AIT Thailand. Saat ini sekarang bekerja sebagai dosen di Kasetsart ya, kalau tidak salah di lanskap arsitektur. Seperti itu. Jadi nanti kalian setelah di presentasi Pak Sigit bisa langsung bertanya ya terkait dengan green space ya, bagaimana meletakkan green space di dalam urban design. Ya. Oke, baik, silakan lanjut aja Mas Sigit. Mau pakai bahasa Inggris juga boleh?
Boleh. Oke, jadi biar kelihatan sedikit ya. Saya akan share screen sekarang ya. Oh. Oke. Ini full screen kan ya?
Ya, sudah.
Bentar ya. Ini nggak full screen. Ada masalah di ini. Oke.
Di sini nggak ya. Sudah full screen.
Oke. Selamat pagi. Kalau gitu saya mulai aja lecture-nya dari sekarang ya. Saya akan nyoba pakai bahasa Inggris ya. Sekalian belajar lah. Sayanya maksudnya. Good morning everyone. So we're starting the lecture. My name is Sigit. Like Bagas said, I'm an Indonesian, so it's not actually essential for me to speak in English, but I think it will be good for me to practice my English as well, and it will be good for you as well to listen lecture in English. So mostly this morning presentations will be based on the my book that I authored about 2 years ago, I think. This is part of the many different projects because although I'm in landscape architectures, but I graduated in architecture discipline and urban planning and design discipline. So mostly my work, my research are related to urban designs, and lately my research project mostly related to urban health, whether it's the impact of climate change to human health in urban area, whether urban health in general, inequality, and of course one of big part of my research, which is funded by different national and international donor, are mostly on physical activity in urban area. So this is my books, but mostly it's based on what I did, my research projects in Thailand and Southeast Asia, which funded by This one is Thai Health Promotion Foundations in Thailand, and also WHO, the World Health Organization, Southeast Asia regions, and also the Asia Pacific Network Global Change Research as well. So one of the output of these projects is this book. So it is for free, and I even asked Vijaya to to write some sort of introductions in these books as well. So if you're interested, you can freely download it and share it with your friends on this link. Or if you're interested in more of a academic writing, you can also look at some of the journal articles that I wrote, mostly about the urban health and physical activity as well. Just Google the titles or my name in Scopus or any other database. So let's start the lecture. The first part will be what is physical activity. Again, because I cannot see everyone, so if you have any questions during my presentation, so please just raise your hand and I'll try to address it during the presentation. So please do not hesitate to ask and stop me from giving the lectures. So this is always the first questions that I ask to students in here during the lectures or workshops. How would you like to die? And 99% will say die in bed peacefully and go to heaven. So I think we all want to have this kind of answers. Everyone wants to answer these things, but the thing is, in the world, what causes most death, there has been very significant changes in terms of what causes most death to world populations. So if you see in 2009 and in 2019, there are some same and different causes. Please look at the color. The red one is communicable maternal, neonatal, and nutritional disease. And the blue one is what we call the non-communicable diseases. And the green one, it's not on the list, is because of injuries. If you see the trend from the old times, usually people die from the red color diseases. But lately, during 2009, 2019, the trend has changed into more of the top 10 you see are considered as a blue color diseases. So the next questions would be, what is this blue color diseases? Well, the red one, what we call infectious diseases or communicable diseases, is such as HIV, tuberculosis, hepatitis, COVID, including this word in this category as well, monkeypox, and then also the maternal and child health, such as malnutrition, infant deaths, and maternal health. And the blue one is the non-communicable diseases, and injuries include such as traffic injuries, fall, drowning, burn, or in other part of the world, such as when there is a war. So it includes it is included as an injury as well. Again, similar graph, but you can see that global death, both sexes, all ages, 2019, the percentage, or almost 70% probably, or almost 80% of the deaths in the world are caused by NCDs. So, and then we come up to the new terms, non-communicable diseases. So NCDs are accounted for 70% of the 57 million global deaths, and this is in 2018. The latest data in 2022, it's almost the same, almost 70 something percent. That includes also, of course, that excludes the deaths from COVID as well. So, and then NCD is there are 5 main NCD risk, non-communicable diseases risk. So the disease called cardiovascular diseases, mostly caused by unhealthy diet, chronic respiratory diseases, mostly caused by tobacco use, and cancer. The air pollutions contribute a lot to cancers, and diabetes, harmful use of alcohol, and a lot of unhealthy diet, such as high consumption of sugars, also contribute highly to diabetes. And there's also mental health conditions with, these are the relations of risk to the non-communicable diseases. If you can see here, the risk and the death from NCDs, the highest one will be high blood pressures. The red one is the disease, but the blue one is the risk. So if you see this, we have a new word for this. You see tobacco also contribute to NCD, dietary risk also contribute to NCD, alcohol use also contribute to NCD, and then we have another terms, what we call the low physical activity or insufficient physical activity, also contribute very significantly to global deaths caused by NCDs. And then if you're an Indonesian, how would you like to die? So this is the newest data on NCD mortality of in Indonesia in 2022. Actually, this is the latest report by WHO, just came out like last week. And even when we include COVID, the death due to NCDs in Indonesia account for 76%. So statistically, if we have 100 people in the room, 76% will most likely to die because of NCD. So that's the common patterns in Indonesia, in Thailand as well, and in many parts of the world. The next question is, why should we care? It's not our field. It's the medical science, doctors, nurses should care about it. Why should we care? Because to understand the causes, we need to know, understand the causes of NCD. But mostly NCD is a disease, but there are also psychological risk factors, such as what causes NCD, mostly overweight or obesity, high blood pressures, high blood glucose, or abnormal blood lipids. And also there's a behavioral risk factor, which is the consumptions of tobacco, consumptions of alcohol, unhealthy diet, and physical inactivity. And then the next questions would be, what caused this to, tobacco use, alcohol abuse, unhealthy diet, and physical inactivity. And then we have the term physical activity. So what is it? In the old times, we call physical activity as an exercise. So this is exercise, running, doing football, swimming, biking. But how about this? This is biking, but this is bike to school. Is it a exercise or is it not? And how about this? If it's we clean the house, or even we're doing gardening at home, is it an exercise or it is not? So in the old time, the science of exercise has a gray area, which is cannot explain whether this is an exercise or not exercise. So this is why WHO define physical activity is broader than exercise. So physical activity is defined as body movements of any type that result in energy expenditure, which includes walking, cycling, playing, dancing, gardening, and sport. So the scope of physical activity is wider, or is it broader than what we call an exercise. So physical activity have the biggest circles, including walking, doing chores at homes, doing active transports like biking and walking to schools, and then even you play at the playground, or even recreational physical activity, it is called a physical activity. And then the smaller one will be health enhancing physical activity, and then exercise to improve fitness. And then the smaller circles will be sport, and inside the sport, there is another circles, what we call the sport for excellence, for athletes, or sporting events. So that's the scope and definitions of physical activity defined by the WHO. So it is so important that the WHO issues what they call the global recommendations on physical activity for health. The left one is the recommendations from 2010, and the right one is just came out like 2 years ago, I think. WHO guidelines on physical activity and sedentary behavior in 2020. Mostly the same, but there are some small changes in terms of details, how you measure and how you define what is physical activity and what is not. So this is the new version. So children and adolescents, you need at least 60 minutes a day, moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity across the week. And then adults, mostly 150 to 300 minutes per week. So this is why if you have a smart watch, such as Garmin, Apple Watch, or other smart watch, you will see that the activities set at the default would be 150 minutes per week of exercise, or moderate and vigorous physical activity. And for adult, also the same. For older adults or elderly, also the same recommendations. So the thing is, so physical activity is not sport. It's broader than sport. It's any kind of activity includes sport as well. So doing chores at home, shopping and at the shopping malls, biking to school, or even jogging in public parks is also considered a physical activity. So physical activity itself is new science. So the first word come out as physical activity is during in 1958, where there is a research on bus driver in London, and then there is a difference between the bus driver and the co-bus driver who collect the tickets from the passengers. You know, that the bus, the double-decker bus in London. So the driver were found to be most likely to have heart diseases compared to the person who collect the tickets from passengers. So, and then after some research, the study found out that the reason was very simple, because the person who collect the ticket from passengers walk more or active more than the bus driver who sit all day. So, but it wasn't until 1996 when it becomes a thing in the medical sciences, when in the US, a report of the Surgeon General saying that there is an associations between physical activity and health outcomes in the US populations. It means that if you move more, if you are more active, you will more likely to have better health outcomes. So what's the situation in Indonesia? So this is the situations. The prevalence of, this is also the newest data from the WHO, just came out last week in 2022. So if you see here, physical inactivity mostly happen at the adolescence at age 11 and 17. So in Indonesia is generally for adults is okay, adults and older adults, but mostly adolescents are less active than other age group. And then this is also another data that just came out, that the direct healthcare costs attributable to NCD and mental health associated with physical inactivity, it costs the government around more than 270 million US dollars per year, and then it's quite a big amount of money. If we can improve this and invest more in physical activity, we will reduce this direct healthcare cost. So it is still an emerging field, especially in Southeast Asia. I know for sure because I work with the WHO CRO, and in Indonesia there are not many people working on this field yet. And then, so, okay, we know what is NCD, we know what is physical activity, and then what are the relations between those two things with our field, or built environment related field. Everyone knows, I think we all knows that design matters for health. Like the famous example for this is that one research in London shows that there is an association between living near the tube and life expectancy, meaning people who live near the tube will have a higher life expectancy because they are mostly more active than people who are living further from the tube. So this is another simple examples that being active can have a direct effect to your health. So I show you this slide before. There's a physical activity as the causes of NCDs as a behavioral risk factor. But what causes these behavioral risk factors? There are a lot, and one of them is the built environment that causes this tobacco use, alcohol abuse, unhealthy diet, and physical inactivity. So this is the connections that we look for in connecting non-communicable diseases, physical activities, and built environment. Because built environment is the causes of these NCDs. And in terms of NCDs, the medical science will address the top of the iceberg, the diseases and the metabolic risk factors, and then some of us in non-health related sectors will mostly address the behavioral risk factor and social determinants of NCD, because this is important, because this behavioral risk factor and social determinants are we cannot see because it's deep down cause of the cause, and then we have to change both of the physical environment and non-physical environment related to NCDs. So this is very important for the world, that in 2018 the WHO and the countries that are in the UN and in the World Health Organizations agrees that there is a need for a global action plan on physical activity. So in 2018 they made one what it calls the Global Action Plan on Physical Activity 2018 to 2030. Why 2030? Because that is the end of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. So one of the important message of this Global Action Plan is what we call a system-based approach. That to be able to achieve more active people for a healthier world, there is a need to create 4 systems. We don't need to care the different colors, but let's pay attention to. I'm not sure it's clear, but anyway, let's put attention on the green color one, which is called the create active environment, because this is what is directly related to our field. So one of the important part of this system-based approach for physical activity is what the WHO said, active environments. So what is active environments? There are different indicators, some sort of integrate transport and urban planning policies, and then improve walking and cycling networks, and then strengthen road safety, and then improve access to public open spaces, and then implement proactive building policies to enable people to move more. So these are the action plans that really directed to us as architects, landscape architects, urban designer, and urban planners in the global action plan. And then in 2018, WHO also published the first status report on physical activity and health in the Southeast Asian regions, which is it's also an important document in saying that, okay, Southeast Asia also support the global movement on making the world to be more active. And I was involved in the global action plan in the status report, and I think it's last 2 years or last years during the COVID. I was also involved in making the roadmap for implementing the global action plan on physical activity in the WHO Southeast Asia regions, and the last one that I talked about, the global status on physical activity in 2022, just launched last week. So if you're interested to know all these documents, you can download them for free on the internet. And all these documents explicitly states the importance of the built environment, create an active environment, and then all these documents clearly aims to create environments that promote and safeguard the rights of peoples of all ages and abilities. So meaning universal designs in creating the active environments, and then to have an equitable access to safe places and spaces in their cities and communities. So meaning everyone has to have an equitable access, no one left behind when we're designing and planning these places and spaces. And then everyone has to have an equal opportunity to be physically active in these spaces through walking, cycling, and other recreations activities in the public spaces. So these are the messages that that this global and regional movement that are happening right now in relations to physical activity and the built environment. So to sum up, so how built environment is related to physical activity is because physical activity is built environments is the setting for the physical activities, and how can we be so active are determined by the land use pattern, transportation systems, and design of environment in our everyday life. In fact, this is so important that in the document, the physical activity is divided by 3 domains, which is work-related physical activity, and recreational physical activity, and transportation related physical activity. The last 2 will be very dependent on how we plan and design the built environment, because recreational physical activity includes exercise and play and other recreational activities conducted in public spaces such as parks, plazas, gyms, and other public spaces. Transportation related physical activity depends on how we plan and design our streets, networks, public transport, and etc. It is important. The importance of built environment has been stated in the in many other organizations, including this one is what we call International Society for Physical Activity and Health. It was on the British Journal of Sports Medicine since 2012, saying that the importance of physical activity, that there are 7 best investment if you want to make people more active. If you pay more attention to number 2 and number 3, where it's exactly what we are dealing in our fields about transport and environment, urban design, and infrastructures. But the reality is like this. It's always like this. Cities are planned for cars, and it's difficult to just cross the road. And the 2 different, very starking difference is, one is in Copenhagen, one is in the US, and it is difficult to maintain a healthy diet and physical activity in an environment that discourages physical activity and encourages excessive consumptions. So this one is in Bangkok. I'm sure in Jakarta it's also the same. So in other part of the world, even in Bandung, I know that the traffic is also very bad. That our built environment is not designed to support physical activity, and it's getting harder to be active, especially in Southeast Asian cities. Okay, and then when we talk about landscape and physical activity, or built environment and physical activity, and when we talk about planning and designing for active environment, we will divide the settings for built environment in 4 types. The first one is schools, because schools directly affect how active children are. And the second one is transportations, mostly related to public transportations. And the third one is communities, how we make our neighborhood are more walkable, for example. And the fourth one is the park and recreations. So there are many evidence. There are evidence are a lot in this regards, how schools can promote physical activity. So research done in these areas are a lot. If you're interested, in the US, there's a website called Active Living Research that directly conducting research related to physical activity and built environment in many cities of the US. One of the important part of the school is how we can renovate schoolyards to increase the number of children. Because many studies have found that if we improve the playground in the schools, children are more likely to be more active. In terms of transportations, of course, we all know that people, if people who live in neighborhoods with sidewalks on most streets are 47 more likely to be active. And if we have public transportations, people will have more steps per day. And if there are bike facilities, bike commute will ride 40% more of the miles. So these are the evidence that supports how the importance of transportations in promoting physical activity. And in the communities as well, the walkable communities is not a new thing for us. And so mostly if we provide walkable neighborhood and recreational facilities in the neighborhood, people are likely to be more active. And parks and recreations or green open spaces in general, whether it's trails, national parks, or even just open spaces, will there are so many evidence stating that providing these park and recreations are very essentials in promoting physical activities. And how about in Indonesia? Again, this is the data from the global status reports in 2022. So if you can see from the report here, you will see that not many things are okay in terms of Indonesia. Well, the good news is there are so many issues which is suitable for your research, whether it's on walking and cycling, whether it's not on road safety, whether it's on street design, whether on its pedestrians, whether it's on public transport, whether it's on green open spaces provisions in cities. So there are many opportunities for research here, and your research can be very useful for the future development of the cities. Okay, so the second part of this presentation is what I mostly do in my research projects. It's on parks and physical activity. But before that, are there any questions?
Do you have any questions? Will we continue? Continue aja, Man.
Okay, then let's continue. So the question would be, why should we promote physical activity in parks or in green open spaces in general? The first is because people are very often physically active when in the park. In most research in Thailand found out that one park visit will increase 5 minutes of leisure physical activities, or if you're in the park, at least for 1 hour, at least 30 minutes of park visitation were spent by engaging physical activity. Or I just published a papers that in Bangkok, if you visit park regularly, you are almost four times more likely to meet the WHO recommendation for physical activity. So this is an important message, because why we have to put more emphasis on promoting physical activity in the park. The second reason is that because investing in parks and recreations, what happened? Okay, increase physical activity benefits. A study in the US found that if you spend more $10 per capita on park and recreations, you will get 8 hours more per week of MVBA, or medium and vigorous physical activity. It means there will be more chance for people to meet the WHO recommendations on physical activity. And the supply of park and recreation is directly related to amount of physical activity by people of all ages. And if you increase the park and recreation area, if you build more parks, for every 1% is associated with 1.2 to 1.4 increase in physical activity for all ages. So that's that's another examples why. And then having park and recreation services close to home increases use and physical activity benefits. This is also, I think everyone understands this, because people who live near the parks are more likely to participate in recreation and physical activity. And people who live within a walking distance to the parks are more likely to visit the park and engage in physical activity. And in Thailand, visiting a park and conducting MVPA in the park has, if we quantify, if we put monetary value to a park visit, every time we visit the parks, we invest to ourselves 275 baht per visit, or in rupiah, probably around 1,100 rupiah per visit. So so it's benefit for us, although compared to to the gym membership or subscriptions to the gyms and clubs. So just visiting the parks, you can get a good benefits. And if you're interested in health economics, per minutes of the visits, it's equal to 2.2 Thai baht per quality. Quality is the quality adjusted life years. If you're interested in these concepts, you can Google for it. It's how we measure the economic valuations of our lives in the medical sciences. And from this is also another case in Thailand. If we put monetary value of the park only from the physical activity perspective, it's around 2,500 baht per square meter per year. That's the value of the park only from physical activity. We haven't include other economic value from reducing greenhouse gases, reducing the urban heat islands and microclimate and local temperatures, not socioeconomic values and other values. It will be more than this. This is only from the physical activities point of view. So per park will be around 100 million baht per park per year. So it has a very tremendous benefits in terms of monetary value. And if we talk about the example of success, there are a lot in the world, and there are probably you have heard of them as well. There are super killings. There are, there are still Thai in here. Okay, this is the High Line in New York, and then another one that the city in Amsterdam, they close one of the streets because the traffics, and they put the playground and other open spaces in the street. And then the famous one will be the Chongkechon in Seoul. Well, there are not only physical activity benefits, but also other benefits, such as reducing PM, reducing urban heat island effects, and economic benefits from the tourists coming in, and then businesses also improving and also decreases the vehicles and people who there mostly walking and conducting leisure, moderate to vigorous physical activity. So these are some examples, some famous examples that you can find it on the internet. Okay, so the fourth part of the presentations would be the criteria and considerations in planning and design, especially for park and green open spaces to promote physical activity. The first one is always access. In many studies, accessibility is the most important considerations in park design for physical activity. When we talk about accessibility, we will talk about two types of access: of the physical access, whether the public open spaces are in proximity with your homes, workplace. And also there's physiological or what we call a perceived access. It means it's not necessarily have to be in proximate areas, but it will have to have good connectivity to that particular place. For example, if the park has public transport access, people will more likely to visit the parks. And how we do that? One of the important criteria is we should integrate parks and open spaces as part of large-scale developments. For example, in Bangkok, it is required for large-scale development to have a higher open space ratio as the permit requirements. And the second one is design for inclusivity. As you know that we need to have more universal designs and leave no one behind, and especially for subpopulation groups they are very vulnerable, such as homeless peoples and other and different people with different abilities also needs to be included in our designs. And the last one, of course, because we need to have good connectivity or good perceived access, we need to maximize access to parks and public transportation corridors, open space networks, and with denser populations. And then the second one would be, this is always been the case with parks design, planning and designs. When we plan the green open spaces, is it because the land is very expensive? So instead of one big parks, can we do the small parts, but in dispersing them into small pieces? When in the studies have found that park size is very critical in explaining the park-based physical activity. So the number of park area, this is we found that in Thailand as well, but also in other part of the world, such as Australia and in the Europe and in the US, park area was associated with the number of park visitor, because the bigger the park, the more visitor will be, and higher level of physical activities happens in the park. So one of the options would be aggregate parks into one larger area, if possible, rather than dispersing them into smaller pieces, if possible. This is why in many cities they prefer to have one big parks rather than into smaller pieces of parks. And if it is impossible, then we should design a network of smaller parks to connect activities. For example, in a very dense neighborhood where it is impossible to design a large park, the best approach would be create a network of parks where different activities can be concentrated or dispersed, where it can be perceived as a one large area of parks. So this is particularly true especially in Southeast Asia megacities. Singapore has done this kind of thing pretty well, and Singapore has been using this approach to create an image of a connected green spaces and green space network that can accommodate various physical activities as well. And then if we settle with the locations and then the size, of course, the facilities and features are important parts in determining the physical activities in the park. And for some of the considerations include that we need to provide a variety of facilities to support play and recreation, such as paths, trails, running tracks, playgrounds, and sport facilities. We also need to provide multi-purpose area for mass participation events and organized activities. And then we also need to provide park amenities that indirectly support physical activities, such as bathroom, for example. It's a very small example, but it's important activities as well. And then one of the most important part in this process is to ensure the facilities and features are age appropriate, diverse, and inclusive. So we come back to the first principles, that inclusive design. And then the next aspects of the next criteria for planning and designing parks for physical activity would be aesthetics. As an urban designers and an architects or landscape architects, aesthetic is important, but sometimes the aesthetically pleasing park does not always means that it needs to have an avant-garde designs with fancy design features and materials. A recent studies found out that there's one famous park in Copenhagen, which is called Superkilen, and it won design awards. I just showed you in the previous slides as well. This famous park has less visitors and less physical activity than the neighboring local park, because park aesthetics is understood by visitors differently. Sometimes it can be aesthetics can be perceived as the presence of natural settings. For example, in tropical climate, tree covers and canopy densities is essential for park users because they can increase time spent in the park. And then park greenness is also considered an aesthetics for park visitors. And then there are sometimes park visitors also perceive aesthetic as a well-maintained park. So in other words, parks that are well-maintained and they have a functional facilities and features, as well as clean and pleasant surroundings, are considered as very aesthetic park. So again, sometimes park visitors also consider organized activities, availability of organized activities or intervention programs in the parks is also identified as a park that are attractive, very aesthetics by park visitors. So for example, parks that have a lot of people, and then parks that have regular activities such as yoga, aerobics, or other mass participation event. For example, if you have running events on that park, will be considered as a more attractive and aesthetically pleasing parks than others. So these are some of the considerations that we need to have in planning and design parks versus the preserve or create natural environment to support activities in all seasons and weather conditions, because we're in tropical climate, which has a very different context with subtropical climates. And the second one is also important, design for safety, because safety in this sense, meaning safe from injuries. For example, a playground should be designed to prevent injuries for children. And then, for example, lights on the sidewalks and good light for evening activities. It's also a very small thing, but it's important for safety of the visitors. And the next one would be, I'm sure you're familiar with this, the CPTED. This is a very famous concept 20 years ago and still is right now, that the principle to increase security and social interactions in the public space. For example, surveillance, and then security camera, security guards, and grouping some activities into one zones. And then the fourth one will be designed for sustainability, because usually, and it's true in Thailand and in some other countries, parks usually have a limited budget for design and maintenance, because it belongs to the maintained by the local government. So it is essential to choose design elements and material that easily maintain, have long life cycles, and promote sustainability as well. And then the organized activities, which is important to park visitors. It's also important. Providing regularly organized activities will increase park visits and physical activity levels as well. And for example, delivering organized activities specifically for females, such as aerobics yoga can improve park visitation for women. And this is also the same with the children as well. If you have school related activities in the park, children will more likely to visit the parks. And the last one would be create a sense of belonging through design. When you can collaborate with local communities in planning, designing, and maintaining the park, and also creating partnerships with private sectors and civil society organizations to ensure the organized activities are there, and to reduce the dependency through the public financings by the local government. Okay, last part of my presentations. Are there any questions? If no.
Oh, there's one question.
Okay.
Can you hear the voice? Yeah.
Udah masuk suaranya.
Okay, thank you for the chance. I want to ask about the park size that you have said before. I want to ask about the reason or the explanation about the aggregate one large area better than dispersing them into smaller pieces. I would like to ask about the reason or the background for this segment. Thank you, sir.
I cannot hear your voice very well, but if I'm not mistaken, it's about the park size, right?
Yes, right.
Can you hear it?
Bagas bisa di repeat nggak pertanyaannya?
Okay. She asked about the park size. What's the difference between?
Oh, the reason.
The reason. Sorry, the reason between large or big park.
Yeah, why the large size is better than the dispersing them to the small
Okay, why the large size is better compared to dispersing into smaller parks?
Okay.
So that's what that she's asking about.
Okay, so the park size, because the bigger the parks, the more people can go visit to the park, and then this is only from the physical activity point of view. Okay, the bigger the size, more people can be accommodated. More people can visit the park, and then more activities can be accommodated, and then more facilities can be designed in the park. That's the reasons. And many studies in the US and in the Australia says that from the physical activity point of view, designing one big park, such as, for example, the Central Park in New York, will have a total physical activity benefits compared to if we disperse it into small parks. That is from the evidence from the physical activity point of view. And then another thing is because I'm also conducting research on urban heat islands and microclimate. This is also true that small parks have very little benefits in lowering microclimates and urban heat island compared to big parks. For example, big parks in Bangkok will be the district park, and district park is around, I cannot remember, it's quite big. I cannot remember the size, I'm sorry. But in terms of microclimate, big parks with the high NDVI or high greenness levels can only help reduce the microclimate up to 500 meters from the park. So if you have parks, and then at that 500 meters, that's the maximum effects of the effects of the park in lowering the microclimate or local temperatures. So the bigger the parks, there are multiple benefits, not only from physical activity point of view, but also from the environment, from the local temperatures, from the social interactions, because more people can be accommodated. So that's the thing. But that's the ideal situations, because especially in Southeast Asia and in very dense cities such as Jakarta, Bandung, or Bangkok as well, or probably in other part of the world. In Singapore, they can do it very easily, but and in KL they can also do it very easily compared to in Indonesia or Thailand. So what you can do is just connect these places and make sure that there is a connected networks among these small parks that makes it one big area of green open spaces. So I'm not sure I answer your questions or not.
Okay, she understood now.
Okay, because I cannot see who asked the question. Okay.
Then, can you see her?
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you for the question.
Oh yeah, my name is Violeta Karisma-Saragi.
Okay, Violeta.
Hello, Violeta.
Any other questions? You want to ask? Yeah. No?
No, sir.
Okay, Calvin.
Okay, thank you, sir, for the material and the class. And I want to ask about that stigma, that paradigm about the big one park is better than smaller park again. My name is Calvin from Urban Design. If we concentrate parks into one big area in the middle of the city, isn't it makes some part of the city have more difficult access to that big one area park than we disperse that park into the little one like that? Thank you, sir.
That's very good questions. So what I mean, if you can, that we talk about two different things. The first thing is design one park. If it's possible, design as big as you can. And the second one is make a network of green open spaces. It means, because one of the most important criteria and considerations when designing parks is access. So if we do that, then, like you said, the park will be concentrated in one area. And let's say we talk about a hypothetical city, one big park in the middle of the cities. And how about people who live in a suburban area? They cannot go there because they're not living around the park, and they cannot access it very well, especially if they don't have public transport access to that park. So what you can do is you can, I think it's also happening in Indonesia. You create a hierarchy of parks. In Thailand and it's true in Bangkok, so you have the at the city level, you have a city park, district park, suburban park, community park, and then the smallest one will be the neighborhood park. So the point is, if each level, if it's possible, make it as big as you can. And then if it's not possible, then connect it with other parks nearby with a connected network, and to get the image of the one big park. So that's the thing. So the important part, so there are two answers to your questions. Do not make one big park in one big cities, but the point is, if you want to build parks, and if it's possible, build as big as you can, and if it's not, then connect it with other existing park or other future development of the parks. If it's not possible, you can also connect it with large development in the cities, because I'm sure in Indonesia there's also a green open space ratio, and commercial development, a big commercial development in cities, they require quite big green open space ratio, and then you can provide a direct connections from one park to privately owned public space, and then another connections to other smaller parks, neighborhood parks. So in the end of the day, there will be one big network of green open spaces. In Europe, this green network of open spaces is also has the functions to limit the growth of the city as well. So that's the another benefit of making this connected networks of green open spaces. I'm not sure if you can ask me more if you're still not clear.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Another question?
Ada pertanyaan lagi?
Yeah, just another question. Okay, thank you for the kesempatan. I want to ask about the maintenance. One of the problem of park Indonesia is their lack of maintenance. Because so is our role is include in the maintenance, or we just design it and the maintenance is out of our control, like that?
Maintenance, it's very important questions, because when we talk about public green open spaces, we mostly talk about public parks, public plazas, and everything which belongs to publics. We exclude the discussions the privately owned public spaces in this, especially when we talk about the physical activity or social interactions or planning and designs green open spaces. So the idea of maintenance is we should plan it beforehand during the planning phase, and also design phase, by using design for sustainability, low maintenance materials, trees, and areas, because mostly these public parks are managed by the local government. So they have a very limited budgets to maintain this park. So what we can do is we can help reduce this maintenance budgets during the planning and designing phase, and then during the maintenance phase itself, we should also plan the financing for this. It comes with the financing phase for the design as well. What is trending now in Thailand is by involving private sectors and civil society organizations in not only planning and designing public spaces, but also financing public spaces. For example, if a big company has CSR projects, they can also fund one part of the zone of the park, for example, playgrounds, or even a jogging track, bike track, and then because they will have more budgets than the local government, and they will have more budgets to maintain it for a long period of time. And then the second part is that create partnerships to manage and finance the maintenance. Another trend in here, but beside from using CSR from the private sectors, is that we have in the parks, we have a lot of sponsored activities, organized activities. For example, there's a running event in the park, which is sponsored by whether it's a private company, whether it's other organizations. So this kind of sponsorships will be helpful in financing the maintenance of the park. The point here is when you plan, when you design, please also include the long-term maintenance mechanisms for the park as well, whether by using long life cycles materials and plans, whether by creating a partnerships and making a financial mechanisms for the parks, or whether by involving local communities that live nearby, because I'm not sure in what's the situations in Indonesia, but in Thailand, we did a survey on willingness to pay for people to visit the park, and the willingness to pay to visit the park is around 20 baht per visit. So it's quite a lot. 20 baht, it's probably 8,000 rupiah per visit. So it's quite a lot per visit. So it means that they're willing to invest in parks and green open spaces. They just don't know how. And especially if for the private sectors, they have a lot of CSR projects, and when we just have to grab the opportunities and plan it beforehand. So I'm not sure if I answer your questions.
Any other questions? No other questions.
Okay, so let me conclude at the last part of the presentations, because one of the recent development of parks and physical activity, especially during pandemic and the post-pandemic, is that of course, COVID-19 affects physical activity like lockdown and the closures of public parks. And it has a direct effects to physical activities and how we use parks for physical activity and other reasons. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, this is the first one is a study from Fitbit. If you know the brand Fitbit, the smartwatch and the step counter device. Globally, there's a significant reductions in physical activity levels, around 10 to 30%, depending on the severity of COVID-19 pandemics in the countries. And in Thailand itself, we did a survey. It's 50% reductions in physical activity levels in Thai populations, and then the park visit reductions is more than 90%. It means that there are 10% of population who can still access the green open spaces during the pandemic. It also means that there is an inequality of access to green open spaces. Well, there are several trends that we observe in many cities of the world. The first one is that parks are being used for new forms of activities, for example, as a vaccination place, as a COVID-19 test place, and then some use the park because for meeting for some companies and even government agencies use parks for meetings because it is the only open spaces available in the cities nearby, and then they don't want to do people gathering indoors. And then universities, including my universities, we sometimes do class outdoors, and we go to the nearest university park, and then just to do classes there. And then the second trend is also there are emerging active uses in other types of public spaces. For example, in Paris, schools converted into parks, the playgrounds, and then after the school hours or during the semester breaks, where people can access open space if they don't have access to it previously. And then one of the big trends during the COVID-19 is that the re-emergence of proximity and active mobility in urban design. I'm sure everyone familiar with the 15 minutes cities in Paris, 15-minute cities concepts, or in Australia, they just launched plans, what they call the 20 minutes neighborhood for Victoria. And then in Singapore, there are also plans on 20 minutes town and 45-minute cities master plans. So these are not new concepts. Basically, this is back to 1960s. The Jane Jacobs, The Dead and Alive of American Cities. So COVID has makes us realize the importance of green open spaces and active mobility in the cities. So thank you for the opportunity. So let's have a small discussion. Bagas ini sampai jam berapa ya, Bagas? Sampai jam berapa ya?
Sampai 11 sampai jam 11.
Oh, 11. Okay, we still have time. So if you have any questions or discussions, or
Pak Pras, mungkin ada pertanyaan Pak Pras?
Yeah, maybe I have a general question. Based on your experience in Thailand, what is your recommendation for Indonesia, especially for, I mean, the town or the city in Indonesia? You already know the problem, like the difficulty to have land, the government that doesn't spend or invest on the land, and it just ask to the private sector to do this. The government just make the rules. The neighborhood is also difficult, to participate, to give or share the land, even for their need. So maybe you have recommendation or suggestions.
well, that's very difficult questions.
Yes. Okay.
So to be honest, I'm not very well informed about Indonesia. Lastly, I worked related to Indonesia was during the COVID when we helped the Ministry of Health of Indonesia's creating the situational analysis on physical activity in Indonesia. And there was a project by the Ministry of Health, and the head of the project was the professor from IPB, and then he also asked me the same question because I'm Indonesian. So, do you have any recommendation specific for the country? And I said, mostly what I can say is just based on evidence, but what I told him that the most important part is now in Indonesia is about the create awareness first. Create awareness in the sense that all the stakeholders needs to have the same visions on what is important and what are the benefits of having a green open spaces or creating an active environments in the cities, because the leaderships and then the awareness from all stakeholders, I think it's very important. So it's not about the recommendation on how, but this is why I always think that say that mainstreaming. So not many people realize that there are some benefits there, and there are benefits, multiple benefits of having more green spaces, more parks, more active people, more active environments in the cities. So yes, it's difficult questions, and it is difficult to answer, but it depends on, actually I think it's the students' jobs after they graduate to spread the words about the importance of planning and designing active and healthy city, because health is mostly the ultimate goals of when we plan and design the environment. So I'm not sure if I can answer your questions or not, but thank you very much for the questions.
Okay, maybe I'm just thinking. I'm doing my thesis on master degree on pedestrian-oriented street in Wyckoff Street at Denver. Maybe to make a lot of pedestrian street is another alternative, because there is many stakeholders can benefit from that. The commercial, the people who pass the road, and the access can be made more to the city and make people move in this area. How do you think? Is there any experience in Thailand?
Oh, yes. Yes. Now I'm supervising one PhD students and one master students conducting exactly like the topics on walking and the neighborhood environments related to walking, because walking is a bit it's a gray area. We can perceive walking as an exercise, as a physical activity, but and we can perceive walking as the transport. So, but mostly now the discussions about walking and cycling is under the transportation sector. So I always tell the students, if you can include walking as a in the transport as a part of the main discussion at the transportation sector, it will be good. So because it will go beyond providing sidewalk on cities, but it will change the whole systems. So, but it's quite difficult. And in terms of walking in cities, if you're interested in this area, there are a very famous tools called walk score. You can use walk scores to measure how walkable is your neighborhood, and then there are many tools on this, and then you can also and then so my point is that it's going to be difficult to put walking as in the discussions of transport. So if you can, for example, if you can do the walk scores and you can score how walkable is your neighborhood, and then you can do some sort of level of service for the pedestrians in the neighborhood or in different parts of the cities, using the similar tools, similar models used by the transportation sectors for measuring, for example, level of service of streets. And then you can also focus only on the first kilometers, because my student is doing the first kilometers walking from home to public transport stops, or walking from home to in the radius 1 kilometer, because it's going to be difficult in Southeast Asian cities to have a very walkable cities like in Europe, for example. But it is possible to have the first kilometer of walking and then using another mode of transportations, or from public transport stops to workplace to schools, or on the other way around, from workplace to public transport stops or schools to public transport stops. So it's not the whole walking experience, but it's more of part of walking, part of the whole multi-mode transport in everyday life. So we should include walking as part of this modes. So I think that's my opinion, but because it's going to be difficult, and you will get questions, why should we walk along the way? It's difficult to walk now it's how many people will walk. It's very hard to walk in tropical climates, things like that. So for now, I think it's the most plausible way is to include the whole experience of commuting by using walking as one of the part of the everyday life commuting experience. That's my opinion, and that's what my students are doing.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Yakin lagi, silakan.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Sir Sigit, for the material and the new knowledge of this class. If may I ask, one of the issue in the park of Indonesia is its informal activities. PKL masuk taman, Sir. So if so, how we can protect our parks in Indonesia from that informal activities PKL masuk taman? If we open the access, if we membongkar pagarnya gitu, itu akan membuat kemungkinan masuk PKL-nya lebih tinggi seperti itu. Terima kasih, Pak.
Oh, pertanyaan yang bagus sekali dan susah dijawab. Ya, we have the similar problems here in Bangkok because we also famous for the street vendors and hawkers. One of the solutions is both is through design. The first one is we limit the access. It means the gates. We have gates. The parks in Bangkok always have the gates. So mostly in the small parks we only have 2 access, and in middle-sized parks 4, and then in big parks probably 4 to 6 access. And that will, and then each access have security guard. So it's the carrot and sticks. The gates and the security guard is the sticks, and the carrot approach is that we provide a special space in the park for these street vendors. But the street vendors have to be organized, probably like in ITB as well. Yang dekat Salman itu kan dulu PKL kayak gitu kan. So they need to be organized, and they need to have some sort of organizations, and they will have some sort of specific space for so they can sell their food or their or for any kind of activities, commercial activities there. So we have this kind of thing. And the second solutions is by providing access to the street vendors to sell the food outside the park. So inside there is a street vendor inside the parks, and then outside the parks, at the sidewalk, at the outside the park, they can do that, but they cannot enter the park. So that's two solutions by designs. Non-design things. All the street vendors in Bangkok are required to be registered. And if you don't have registrations, you will some local police will arrest you and take away your stalls, food stalls. So that's the things. But yeah, it's difficult because it's more of human rights things. If we should balance these things in terms of limiting visiting the street vendors and how the park users experience the park. So it's actually one of the job of the designers as well, because what are the experience that you want the park users to have in the park? So it's part of your job as well. So I'm not sure if I answer your questions or not.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Probably we open for one more questions. Is that okay? Yeah, silakan. Mungkin ya.
Stop share.
Mr. Sigit, thank you for this time. My name is Dia, and actually, I'm not sure whether my question is relatable with your presentation today or not. So if you think that my questions are not relatable with your presentation, you can just ignore my question. So, okay, first is, I think that was interesting that you open your presentation with some data about the cause of most death from some physical disease or injury. But I want to kind of remind you that actually, besides physical disease and injuries, the death actually get caused by mental health disorders. And do you think physical activities can help them who have mental health disorders, just like those who have physical disease and injuries? And I want to ask your experience or opinion about how to design public parks that can increase their mental health quality. Or do you have any reference or book or journal or website that can prove if mental health quality can be improved by good public park? Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. It's very interesting questions, and it's a valid and important questions, especially nowadays during the pandemics. Actually, I have one of my PhD students and master students also doing these things as well. I'm also doing the research on how green open spaces can affect mental health as well. So during COVID, one of the biggest finding, the effect of COVID is that people, the mental health, there are more mental health cases in the world, and surprisingly, there are many evidence as well that if you can access green open space during COVID, it will you will have a better quality of life, better mental health situations, and less depressed. That's only during COVID. But before COVID, green open space also important in maintaining the health and well-being of an urban population. So that is the very emerging area, and even WHO also includes the mental health diseases as one of the important part in physical activity. So by having a physical health, we will have a better mental health. So your question is very important. So, and you can do this research for your master degrees or even your PhD, because there are still very few evidence, especially in Southeast Asian cities. Most cases on green open spaces and mental health are done in the European countries and in the US. So I encourage you to do these topics, and please let me know if I can be of any help. So yes, that's very important questions, important topics as well. My experience, so mostly by reading these journals, and in Thailand, we were conducting a research during the COVID, and we found that I'm still writing about these papers. It's not finished yet, but I can share you the results. And we found that people, especially people in Bangkok, who has the opportunity of accessing green space during the COVID, especially during the park closure, because in Bangkok and in Thailand, there was a time where during lockdown, all the public spaces are closed, including parks. So without access to green open spaces, there are 10% of the populations who can have access to open spaces. These 10% of populations will have better mental health situations compared to the 90%. And there are also a reduction in physical activity, and there are also changes of patterns and characteristic of physical activities. For example, work-related physical activities also reduce, recreational physical activities also reduce, and mental health conditions also reduce for 90% of the population. So your question is very valid, and I urge you to do this kind of research for the Indonesia context, because I'm not sure. I have not found in studies in journals recently. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you. I think that's wrap all. Yeah. Any other questions? I think it's already finished. It's already 11. Yeah. We already reached the end of our class. Oh, but before, I forgot to tell you that this class is Studio, what is it called? Urban Design Studio 1. And there are 3 lecturers. Teachers at this class. First is Mr. Pak Pras, and then me, and then Pak Aziz. Where's Pak Aziz? Oh, Pak Aziz lagi telepon dulu, maaf ya. Oke, ya, itu aja Pak Sigit. Terima kasih banyak ya, thank you very much for. Atau ada patah dua patah kata dari Pak Pras, mangga Pak.
Iya, terima kasih ini Mas Sigit ya, sudah sharing. Sangat berharga buat Rancang Kota, karena memang kita hanya bicara ruang terbuka hijau, tapi sekarang kita mengerti bahwa di situ ada hal yang sangat penting untuk kesejahteraan masyarakat kita di ruang tersebut ya, yang perlu kita lebih serius dan mengupayakan dimanapun kita waktu sudah lulus, tetapi itu bagian dari tugas urban design saya kira ya, selain landscape, untuk menciptakan ruang publik yang menyehatkan. Terima kasih Pak Sigit pencerahannya.
Sama-sama Pak.
Baik, terima kasih banyak. Kalau gitu, kita jangan diundang ya, mengisi kuliah tamu. Waktu itu saya juga diundang sama Pak Sigit mengisi kuliah tamu di Kasetsart ya.
Iya betul.
Nanti siapa tahu tadi yang dia mungkin kalau mau dibimbing ya, Pak Sigit dan siapa, saya atau Pak Pras ya, atau dengan Pak Aziz. Oke, kalau gitu terima kasih ya Pak Sigit ya. Sampai ketemu lagi.
Sama-sama Bagas ya, sampai ketemu lagi, sama-sama.
Foto dulu apa enggak ini? Oh, di foto dulu.
Oh iya, foto-foto dulu.
Foto dulu boleh Pak.
Foto-foto. Oke, yuk, 1, oh gini ya. Coba gini.
Oh iya.
1, 2, 3. Sudah? Kamu nggak dapat?
Ini Pak, poin screen-nya. Oh, nah.
Satu lagi, 2, 3. Oke. Baik, terima kasih banyak Pak Pras, Pak Sigit. Sampai ketemu lagi ya.
Sampai ketemu lagi semuanya.
Mari, selamat pagi.
Pagi.